Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my colleague Matt Durot, who is the deputy editor of the Forbes Wealth Team. Matt, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.
Elon Musk, who is already the richest person in the world, made history on Wednesday. He became the first person on the planet to ever be worth $500 billion. And this is really an incredible trajectory because you're reporting that back in March of 2020, he was only worth $24.6 billion. So to start off the conversation, Matt, if you could walk us through this trajectory here, talk to us about not only how he got so rich, but how exactly and what factors are at play here for him to continue to hit these milestones.
Sure. This is just sort of the latest in a series of major milestones that Musk has hit over the last half decade or so. Like you mentioned back in, March of 2020, he was only worth around, $26 billion dollars. And in pretty quick succession, within the next couple of years following that, he became the fifth person ever worth $100 billion dollars, the third person worth $200 billion dollars, the first person worth $300 billion dollars, and then back in December, he hit the $400 billion milestone. And so I would say for the first probably three of those milestones hitting, 100, 200, and 300, it was primarily, the soaring price of Tesla that spurred him to those milestones. And, around the same time he hit, $200 billion, he became, the richest person in the world for the first time. And again, that was largely thanks to Tesla. And so Tesla, continues to be a significant, portion of his, portfolio and of his fortune. But what we've seen over the last several years is that companies like SpaceX, which is now worth $400 billion, dollars, which is pretty staggering in and of itself. And then even his AI company XAI, which merged with Twitter, which he now calls X, earlier this year, that combined company is worth $113 billion dollars. So unlike someone like Larry Ellison, who actually, came pretty close to Musk, within the last month, Oracle, soared and he gained $100 billion dollars in a single day. But like a lot of those folks, like Ellison, they have their net worths, predominantly tied up in a single company, whereas Musk has, a number of significant contributors. And so the fact that, Tesla has, experienced some significant ups and downs over the last few years. It, hit its all-time high in December after Musk helped, Trump get elected, and, people were, excited about, what that might mean. And then as he got going with Doge, it lost like half its value. And then since he's left Doge, the stock has nearly doubled and it's almost back to where it was at its December peak. But just to say that, you know, it's helped him with all these ups and downs with Tesla, that, he's got these other businesses like SpaceX and, XAI that have continued to grow in value and, are making up a larger and larger portion of his net worth.
I know that you said Larry Ellison made $100 billion dollars in just one day. He was at Elon Musk's heels there for a moment. And I know that Elon Musk is hitting these historic milestones. You cover the wealthiest people in the world. And I know that Elon Musk is the richest. He's the first person to ever hit this. But just how unprecedented is how fast his net worth has really just skyrocketed.
Yeah, no, it is pretty unprecedented. And, it hasn't been totally linear. I think it was 2021 that he hit the $300 billion mark for the first time. And then he decided to buy Twitter, and a bunch of other things happened that, he had to sell a bunch of Tesla stock to fund that. And, sort of the combination of that and, the distraction that people saw that is from, his perspective as Tesla CEO. I think he lost $100 billion over the following year. So he went from $300 billion to $200 billion, and he sort of had to, build himself back up. And so he got, from 26 billion to 300 billion very quickly. And then it took him almost 3 or 4 years to get from, back to 300 and then to 400, now to 500. So in the grand scheme of things, this, the little short period of time it took him to get to 500 billion, is unprecedented for sure. It's just, uh, there were certainly some bumps along the way, and people were questioning, like whether he had sort of peaked out, and but no, he's more than bounced back, and continues to hit higher and higher milestones.
And I've had a lot of conversations with our colleague Alan Onsman about Tesla and Elon Musk's role there. And he has faced criticism that he was an absentee CEO. He was a polarizing figure when he was involved in the Trump administration. He was a special government employee, and he was the head of Doge. And Alan said, that's bad. He reported it's bad for business. It's bad for Tesla at the time. Since then, Elon Musk has taken a step back. He departed government. It seems like while he had a good friendship with President Trump that was fast and furious, it kind of flamed out. He has been in the past publicly critical of President Trump. Is that good for his bottom line that he's removed himself a little bit from politics?
Yeah, and I mean, there have certainly been, other things going on. Like, I think people are, rightly or wrongly, starting to get excited about like Tesla's AI story. And, I think they had a pretty good quarter recently, or, I think they just released their deliveries numbers for their latest quarter, and those were, pretty solid. But just the fact that, the stock had sort of bottomed out, the day prior to him announcing that he was going to be stepping back from Doge and spending more time on Tesla, and has doubled since. Yeah, I think that, pretty clearly, speaks to the fact that, investors viewed it as a distraction, and the fact that that distraction, at least in part, seems to have gone away, is meaningful to investors. He still has, other distractions. He has founded or co-founded and runs like 6 different companies, including the ones I mentioned earlier. But Tesla is doing everything they can to get him, focused. The board proposed, as you viewers probably have heard at this point, but they proposed a record-breaking new pay package for him that, requires him to hit a bunch of crazy milestones, like, growing the company's market capitalization by more than eightfold over the next 10 years. But if, he were to do that, and, he has, in the past on a smaller scale, with similar compensation packages, achieved milestones that people thought were crazy from the outset. But that would give him potentially additional Tesla stock, worth like $1 trillion before, things like taxes, and there's a cost of unlocking the shares. But the $1 trillion number is sort of the headline number that has been thrown around. And yeah, I think a big part of that was trying to make sure that Musk is focused and invested in the future of Tesla. And I think that is another, like, investors seem to have reacted, positively to the award. You might think they wouldn't, given the size of it, but I think, yeah, like, a focused Elon Musk is a good thing for Tesla.
And with that astronomical pay package, you've reported that Elon Musk, if he continues the pace that he's on, he could be a trillionaire in less than a decade. Is that all tied up to that pay package, and if he hits those goals?
Yeah, so the way the pay package works is, uh, so he's like earning, pieces of it over 10 years, and he can't actually unlock any of it for 7.5 years. That gets you to like March 2033. So there's a potential scenario if, his existing assets continue to grow at the rate they've been growing, that, he could become a trillionaire without any of that pay package, which would obviously then tack on a bunch more. But it's hard to predict the future, but it'll be a while, like 7.5 years before he sees any of that pay package. But in the meantime, if history is any indication, um, and in order to progress towards, achieving that, pay package, he's going to need to grow the value of Tesla, which will, increase the value of his current holdings. And, SpaceX has been on a pretty steady trajectory. AI is going crazy, obviously, and XAI, um, I think they were valued at, $80 billion or so in March, and there's, rumors that they're exploring funding at a valuation of like 200 billion. So yeah, it's possible he could become a trillionaire without like, before seeing anything from that new pay package, which is pretty remarkable.
And I'm sure when that and if that happens, we'll certainly be talking about that. But you mentioned that Larry Ellison was very close to Elon Musk in terms of overtaking him, potentially for net worth, becoming the richest person in the world. Right now, as you and I sit here, is anyone even close to Elon Musk anymore? Because that was less than a month ago, right?
Yeah, I think he got within like 20 or 30 billion, which, when you're talking about 300, $400 billion fortunes is like pretty close. And it didn't seem, remotely possible until that day when, Ellison gained nearly $100 billion in a single day, that anyone was going to catch up with Musk. So then you sort of started thinking, oh, maybe it could happen. And then, as we've seen, Musk has sort of put an end to that conversation, at least for the time being. So no, Ellison is still the second richest person in the world, and as of yesterday, he was like $150 billion behind Musk. So, and then I think there's a pretty significant gap between him and the third richest person. So, yeah, no, the lead that Musk holds right now is, pretty significant.
So, not is he only the richest person in the world, there's a lot of daylight between his fortune and the fortune of number two. Has he commented on your reporting or Forbes' valuation at all?
It's funny. So he typically does not. I think there have been one, now two occasions, sort of, where he has responded to it. And the first time was, and this was when another colleague of mine was still handling Musk's, net worth and valuation. But when he first passed Bezos to become the richest person in the world in 2021, he sent an email to us like very, very late in the night, or like very early in the morning, that said something along the lines that he was going to send like Bezos a runner-up trophy or something, which was funny. And then, yeah, I just noticed today that someone had tweeted a picture of our real-time billionaires rankings showing him with $500 billion net worth. And um, I think the person was maybe commenting on how there shouldn't be people worth that much or something. But then Musk responded something along the lines of like, I build great companies with great people, and they get assigned, high valuations as a result. And so, yeah, I guess that's the closest he's come, as far as I'm aware, to, directly commenting on our estimate of his net worth in a number of years, which was pretty cool, actually.
Well, Matt, I appreciate the conversation and I appreciate your reporting. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany.